Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the season 4 of the Risk Matrix, episode 1 with James Junkin. Hey, James.
Roll Tide. Can you believe it's been 4 seasons? Wow.
I know, with James Junkin and myself, Dr. Martin, and we're here. We're just going to keep going with this because you guys seem to like us for some reason. Um, Season 4, we've been doing this a while. Today we have a guest with us. We'll introduce you in a second, kind sir. What we like to do is roll in our show with Rip from the headlines. James, take it away.
A lot of things in the news related to occupational safety and health this time of year. Throwing back to 2024, I hope our listeners remember the tragedy in Baltimore where the container ship, the the Dolly struck the Francis Scott Key Bridge. Well, after an extensive investigation, the Justice Department has unsealed indictments against the two corporations. They've indicted the two companies involved and particularly the ship's technical operator for causing the death of construction workers in the collapse of the Baltimore Bridge. What I found very interesting is that the indictment named not only two companies, but also an operator on the ship, a 47-year-old sailor who is the ship's technical superintendent. They've been charged with conspiracy to defraud the U.S., obstruction, and providing false statements in forging safety inspections and safety certification. So I think that's a lesson for us as safety professionals, as people who operate in this arena. It is what it is. Misstatements made to any federal regulator, whether it be OSHA or in this case, the U.S. Coast Guard, can lead to imprisonment.
Yeah. So James, we've seen this now in several cases, even personally, in some of the cases that you and I get involved in as consultants, that they are in many cases going after company owners, foremen, superintendents, etc., and filing charges, whether it's state charges, federal charges, right? One of the things that attorney that I work with, he comes in and he talks to the workers and management when OSHA stops by, and the one thing he says is, do not lie to OSHA. Tell the truth. Some things are going to hurt the company that you're going to say. Some things are going to, some things are going to come out that we may not have known. But the number one thing that you do not want to do is lie to a federal regulator. And I think you even had a case recently where this is coming.
Absolutely. A couple cases here recently where clients made material misstatements to the OSHA area director in an informal conference. We were able to unwind that, but the threat was there to take what was a routine OSHA investigation with citations and expand that into a criminal uh, prosecution, if you will. The other thing I would say is it is what it is. The facts are what the facts are. I had a rapid response investigation here recently where the client got a letter based on an employee complaint. And in that situation, they decided to go to AI, Todd, and ask AI how to respond to this particular issue. And 8 pages later, there were all these things of how it should be, the corrective actions of what were stating that they had done and probably would have done if they had had a implemented program. But there were gaps in that program. So reality did not represent what was in this presentation they wanted to make to OSHA that had come out of Chat GPT. We were able to intervene in that and say, look, it's okay to be honest and tell people you've got gaps and that you're closing those gaps. What it's not okay to do is make material misrepresentations to a federal officer. And OSHA compliance officers are federal officers.
Yeah, and so I mean, James, we're seeing the same thing in cases that I'm working. Um, it is okay to have gaps. Everybody has gaps. Even the best of safety management systems have gaps. And I've never seen, I guess never say never, right? But I don't see a lot of cases where part of your strategy when you're dealing with the federal regulators and negotiating and whatnot, that corrective actions don't come into play and you start to tell them how you're going to close those gaps, right?
I think
These
that's
things
what they
came
want to
about.
see.
Yep,
They
these things came
expect it.
about. We're gonna train, we're gonna retrain, we're gonna change these how we do things. We're going to implement some controls that we didn't previously know about, but do not lie about what you do not have. So I mean
Do not
that's a
lie.
really great topic to open the show with, James. Let's move in to the meat of our show. We're going to talk about AI today with somebody who's been working with this for some time. I don't do the introduction justice because you just gave me the introduction to Todd earlier, so I'm going to let you do that, James. Bring Todd in for us.
Todd is the president of Maverick Safety Training, a great colleague. He serves with me on the training communications practice specialty for ASSP. He is our practice specialty safety professional of the year for 2025, and really has an extensive amount of knowledge on how to leverage AI from the point of a safety professional. Over 25 years of experience in transferring knowledge. I would say he's an expert in knowledge transfer, which is what training is, right? And he did a presentation for us for the society not too long ago, and I found it fascinating in how he's leveraging AI as a tool to improve not only his practice of safety, but others surrounding incident investigations and interviewing workers. And I just thought it was fantastic. Welcome, Todd, to the show.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. I'm excited to talk about this. It's a fantastic topic.
So we're excited to hear it too. So why don't you bring us in? I mean, obviously AI has kind of evolved over the years. How did this come to bear on your practice? How did you kind of first start weaving this into what you do?
So my company is a professional development firm for safety professionals. So in particular, we help safety pros become great trainers. So a lot of safety pros are very technically knowledgeable, but don't know how to create activities, don't know how to engage in a classroom, and sort of they don't change behavior, which is what you ultimately want to do. So we have people who go through our program, and we teach them how to do that. And what I found is that even though people went through the program, they were reluctant to go to production managers and site construction supervisors and to executives and say, I need 4 hours of time. I need, so much money. I need $10,000 to create this training program, or, they were difficult to have that conversation. So I was helping them sort of role play this. So I was saying, well, I'll play the CFO. Let's pretend what the arguments are. We go back and forth. Um, and then about 3 years ago, AI came out, and ChatGPT came out, and I'm using it to, doing for searches and lots of things. But then somehow I found out that somebody said, you can role play with this thing, and you can actually teach the AI to be a persona, to play a cost conscious CFO, to be a site construction supervisor who's under pressure. And you can actually role play back and forth. And so you can practice these difficult conversations again and again and again, which you can't do with a human. I mean, finding people who can role play is difficult. I mean, everybody's busy. They don't have a lot of time.
They don't
They're
want to
not
do it, right? They might feel silly.
well, they will. I mean, so if you run a workshop, and if you say we're going to do some role playing, the whole place starts to groan, right? Because it's kind of you're on the spot, right? I mean, you're going to play something you're not comfortable with. You're worried about doing it wrong. So people, even though role playing is an incredibly powerful technique, I mean, practicing conversations that are difficult, hearing pushback, practicing your responses is incredibly powerful. People are reluctant to do it. I think it's because you're in a room with a bunch of people, but with AI, you can sit at your desk, you can sit in your office, you can be anywhere you want to be, and you can play You can role play with this thing over and over and over again as many times as you want.
So take us through how that looks. I mean, I guess how do you set up the AI to do it? And like give us an example of like in your practice that, when you're training people, how do you tell them how to set it up to role play with you? Or do you have certain scenarios that you load in?
So I do. So what I do is so with clients of mine, I would say so who do you have to sell this training program to, or what resources do you have to get, and who do you have to get them from? And then what we do is we sit down with the AI, and you can do this with any AI. You can do this with ChatGPT, you can do this with Claude, you can do this with Grok. They all are able to do this, and you don't need, by the way, to pay a subscription. The free versions have all these capabilities built in. And what we would do is we would create a persona, and I would say, so what is this person like? So this person who you've got to get resources from. Why is this a difficult conversation? So what do they like? What do they say? What are the arguments they make that you find difficult to push back against? Whether it's ROI, or they use a lot of data, or there's certain phrases they use. And so we would say to the AI, you are playing a cost conscious CFO who makes these arguments. You're focused on ROI. You're always asking about these things. Your speech is very terse. You don't say a lot, and uh, so I want the AI to act as much as possible like this person who you find difficult to role play with, who you find difficult to convince. Um, and then what we do is then we say, okay, so here's the situation. Okay, for example, we had a near miss with a forklift in the warehouse a week ago. Um, I am going to request $10,000 for additional controls and some sensors and things that I want to do, and I want this to be installed before the busy season starts. We're coming into the summer season. We're a warehouse, we're a beverage distributor, whatever it is. So I want to get this installed in the next month, for example. And so this is an unusual request. It's not part of the normal budget process. And so when I tell AI that, okay, and I just say, well, let's role play that, the AI jumps right in to the situation. Now I also say to it, so I'm a safety professional. So here I could even upload my resume into this conversation and say, here's my CV, here's the experience I have. And so when AI starts to play the CFO, it knows who I am. And so it will pull that into the conversation. It is an amazing capability that people just do not know that AI has this ability. And um, so you can start to talk back and forth to it. And so, when you make your pitch, it'll come back and say, gee, what's the ROI on that? Or wait a minute, um, this one incident, it's just one forklift operator. They probably ought to be written up. How come we're not just doing more training? It'll come back with all these arguments that you've got to basically have hard counter arguments to. Um,
Well, I think
now,
what's most outstanding about this is the way I've used AI and the way others have used AI is to create written content, right? And you're creating justification. And then I think this is one of the pitfalls, or at least one of my pet peeves of AI, is we use AI to create the written justification. We put it in an email that's crafted by AI. We send it to our boss who responds to it by an AI tool. And the humans never interact. The only people that really know what's going on is the AI, right?
Yeah.
So this is an opportunity for the AI tool to enhance human connection.
absolutely, and I think at some point, I mean, you're going to get together with a human being, and you're going to be requesting something. I mean, you're asking for time, money, some resource. I want to take people off the construction site for an hour, whatever it is. I'm going to have to get human permission to do that. So at some point, even though we're creating all this documentation and all this communication, I have to speak to a human being. And those conversations can be difficult. I mean, they can be really tough. Um, and if I'm not prepared, I just don't make my best argument. Right? I get up there and I sort of dither, and I don't use the right words and things, and so I don't make my best case because I'm not prepared. But with AI, I can create this persona, and I can also, with AI, I can dial up and down the difficulty. So if I say to AI, you are a cost conscious CFO, AI goes into this incredible knowledge base that it's got. It's been trained on all kinds of things. And so it pulls up its knowledge about cost conscious CFOs. It uses, blogs, and it uses reports. It uses all kinds of things that it's been trained on. So it creates what it thinks is a cost conscious CFO. Okay. Now, I can say to this AI mid conversation, be more difficult, be more cynical. I want you to be, I want you to push back even harder on me on this thing. So, because what I want with role playing is I want to find this sweet spot where I'm challenged, but it's not overwhelming. What I say to my clients is this is if you're doing a role play and it's going really well, you're not doing good. It's not a good role play. You have to be stumped. I mean, if you're not being stumped by the role play, then you are not getting the experience with the objections and the pushback that you're going to get in real life and have to come up with answers for.
Yeah,
So I've got to I've got to dial this difficulty up. So I'm like, God, that was uncomfortable. Like
yeah.
I don't know what to say to that, And this is great because I'm talking to an AI. I just stop and I can say, God, what should I say? AI is just sitting there waiting. It's not judging me at all. It's just sitting there. So I can think of, and I can just throw out an argument. The other thing I see with people when they use this tool is, especially in the beginning, is we set it up and I say, okay, let's role play. And they sit there in silence because they don't know what to say. They're afraid of making a mistake or they're afraid of sort of doing it wrong. And just start talking. You can always reset this conversation. You can go back to the beginning and say, let's restart this thing. And the AI just forgets everything you've talked about and you can do it again.
Yeah. Well, I kind of know the answer to this because I've had it happen to me. Talking to AI about things I have it help me with. Um, you know, does AI ever get to the point where it says, "Good job"? That's a good point.
So it will do that. And if anything, one of the things about these AI systems is they are designed to be sort of easy to deal with and compliant. So, but this has actually changed a lot over the last 6 months. But they are designed. If you ask the AI for feedback, you can say, "Well, did I do a good job?" Its initial response is always going to be yes, but you have to basically ask it for brutally honest feedback. Yeah, you've got to say, I don't sugarcoat this, please give me brutally honest feedback. I want to improve. And it's best if you don't ask it questions like, did I do a good job? You want to say things like, was my use of this near miss data convincing? Or how would I have used that data more effectively in my conversation with the CFO? So I want to get away from these sort of yes, no, short answer questions, but I want to have, very specific points I want to make. But the AI will give you feedback. If you ask it for, what could I have done better? Did I address my CFO's concerns about ROI enough? It will tell you where you could have improved.
Now, I just want to jump back to something you did say. You said you can reset the conversation. Um, what about this misconception that AI is learning as you're talking to it, right? I mean, maybe you're making good points that the AI hadn't considered before. That's not being stored somewhere for them to, kind of use that against you coming back around, or generate a new argument for whatever you gave it.
So the AI is everything you say to an AI is being recorded. Okay, so I will say one thing to people is I would say be very cautious about uploading or talking about confidential information into these systems, okay? Because that information is going off to a data center somewhere which is out of your control. So you should always talk to your IT department and your risk management department about these policies on AI, about these things. But if you give it data, like near miss data, or you can give it reports from that you've done for OSHA and things, it will incorporate all of that into its argument. Okay. Now, as you are talking with this thing and making points, it is definitely storing that information and it is definitely using that in its future responses.
I mean,
But I
I guess
can,
that is
but
good, right? Because if you reset the model and, you're still using that same argument, the AI system may have gone and found other things to combat that argument that you had before. So it is intuitively, it seems like it would be getting harder every time you reset.
I would say that in the course of a conversation, it is definitely getting better and better. As you start to argue with it, it basically will come back with other arguments for you to sort of go against. Okay.
Boy, I've
Um,
had relationships like that. I don't know if I can use this.
Don't tell it. Don't tell it. But is that
Uh,
not how we interact? I mean, we make an argument, we whether it's budget, usually it's around budget, right? Or resource allocation, whether human or capital. We get that allocation, we win that argument, if you will, but then we have to come back with greater justifications for greater or continued resource allocation. So I think it's a good thing. You don't want to always come with the same argument. I think have being and Dr. Martin will surely support this. Teaching safety professionals, and perhaps this has been your experience too. Begin with the framework of OSHA says. Well, OSHA says has not been very convincing to decision makers throughout my career, right? OSHA was someone we rarely see uh, based on the number of companies unless something really bad happens. So in looking at this, moving beyond the initial arguments, I think it's a good thing for the AI learns to counter your past arguments and makes you think about additional arguments. But I'll echo the the warning, the cautionary tale of uploading proprietary information to AI. If it's an open source AI, if it's closed in within your, I think what do they call that, Todd? Enterprise AI.
that's right.
Um,
Yeah. If it's within your walls, then it's totally fine.
so for you folks that are consultants that are dealing with a lot of companies' proprietary information, be very careful because you've signed non-disclosure agreements. You may be under attorney-client privilege. You ultimately could be violating some of those agreements by uploading proprietary data or confidential data to open source AI.
So yeah, I agree with that. I think we all need to be really careful. So I have another question. I have lots of questions because
Okay.
this is fascinating, and I think it does have some other uses which I'll get to in a second. But so and I don't want you to give away the farm here because I know this is your bread and butter of what you do with people. But it seems to me, that having a conversation with something you built, like let's say you built this scenario, you built this person to argue with because you're going to be doing this quite a bit with the same person. Can you ask AI or how do you store that person or store those conversations to return to later so that that person is now a person with knowledge of those original conversations and we're moving forward?
Yeah, it's actually really simple. I mean, so I can create a document. I can create a Word document of a persona. I can say, here is my CFO, Billy Johnson. Okay. And I can say, Billy Johnson is like this. Okay. Billy Johnson is, a MBA from Stanford. It's got 20 years in the industry. They use these phrases. When you say OSHA says, they immediately say no. I can put in the types of hot buttons they have. And so I can store that in a Word document. And so when I want to have a conversation, another role play with my CFO, I can simply upload the Billy Johnson CFO persona. And so that's the persona the AI will grab onto. And then I can also create scenarios. I can say, well, I typically ask for, every year we have a budget conversation, right? So, and here's how the budget conversation always goes. It goes, here's the type of arguments that happen. Um, and so I can have standalone scenarios that I can upload into this. Now, the nice part is on the fly, though, I can change scenarios and I can change facets of the persona. I can say, yeah, we're having the budget argument, and here's the standard situation. But this past year, we operated at a loss, for example, or the last quarter, our stock went down 20%. Okay. And I want you to then include that factor into this conversation. And so the AI will, again, go out to its knowledge base and say, here is how that factor will typically impact this conversation, and we'll start to bring in different arguments.
That's cool. So I have another question. I don't know if it's a question or if it's more of a comment for use of AI. I know a lot of people in our field are they're using AI to uh, tease out specifics of whatever they're trying to learn about. Let's say fall protection, right? Or fall protection scenarios for I don't know, people working on swing staging. Okay. Um, and they're using it in a way that kind of mirrors what a Socratic method would be. Like, what about this? The AI comes back, gives you information, then you ask it more, and I mean, it really is a great learning tool. But my comment on that is sometimes the AI is not correct, and so we need to keep in mind that it is what it's fed, right? It's garbage in, garbage out, maybe partial garbage in, a lot of good stuff in. And so how do we get around that when we're trying to self-learn with AI? Like how do I get around making sure that it's not giving me garbage for what I want to learn?
Yeah, they call it hallucinating. Instead of
Yeah.
lying, they call it hallucinating.
Yeah.
And the reason is the AI again is it wants to be helpful. So it wants to answer your question. So if it, it will make stuff up. So, now I have to say they've gotten a lot better. And I've noticed a big shift in the last 6 months with some of the latest models. They're getting much, much better. But if you are asking it to work with factual information like OSHA regulations and things like that, you do need to be really cautious about that. And so, what you can do is you can actually upload certain documents. You can upload certain like OSHA standards and say, only use the information in this standard in your answers, for example. So I can start to bracket this thing. Okay. Um, I can actually, like James was talking about, these sort of closed systems. So if I have a company and I build a closed system, I would have all the standards that I want the AI to reference in that system,
And
and it
that's
would
it,
only,
right?
and that would be it. Yeah, it would not go outside of that to do it. So companies, to get rid of these hallucinations, are creating these closed systems. But if you're using an open source system, hallucination is a real problem. And this again, if you're trying to get factual information, you got to be really really cautious about that. Now, with role playing, I'm not asking for factual information, right? I'm saying to the AI, play the CFO, here's the general situation. And so, it's making arguments to me that I'm trying to counter, and if those arguments aren't 100%, accurate, there's not a lot of fallout that's going to happen from that, okay? Because eventually I'm going to have a real conversation face to face with my CFO, and they're going to make whatever arguments they make,
And that's
right?
going to be the accurate.
And that's going to be and that's going to be
That's
100% accurate, right? So if the AI throws me some curveballs along the way while I'm role playing with it, I think that's actually really healthy. And in fact, I think one of the fun parts and one of the anxiety producing parts for me when I present at conferences and I demonstrate role playing with AI is I don't know what the AI is going to say, because from session to session, even though I say, you're a forklift operator who's been involved in an incident and I'm going to interview you. Okay. I give it the general parameters. It kind of does whatever it wants. So
Yeah.
I never know exactly what
exactly
it's going
it.
to,
So I
ju-
wouldn't I
just,
wouldn't w-
just like
Just
real
like a
life.
robot.
working
Just
working in construction, I wouldn't have to load in the swear words or anything. It would just do it automatically.
so depending on the AI you use, okay, so ChatGPT and Claude are pretty nice. They're not going to swear, okay. Grok is going to swear, okay. That's just Grok's
So
personality.
Grok,
But
I'm gonna write that down.
yeah, so Grok is XAI. Is there and it does some really fantastic role playing as well. But I can say these are the words people use. They swear, they curse, they use these phrases, and it will use those phrases. So if I want to have the experience, if I'm a fresh out of school safety professional, right? And I really um, want to get a sense of sort of what the people are going to be like, what it's like talking to a 30-year journeyman electrician on the site and things. I could have my boss say, okay, here's what you're going to hear. Here's what the AI, here's what they say, here's how they react to you. Um, and this is actually where I help companies. So companies say, I want to create scenarios for my safety professionals or my risk analysts. When they're talking to people, I want them to experience what it's going to be like in the field talking to people. So we sit down and we say, okay, these are the 4 different types of personality you're going to run into in the field. Okay. And so then people can have the experience of, arguing as a, fresh out of college safety professional with a 30-year journeyman electrician, right? And it's like, wow, that was really hard.
Old school, Todd, that would be called an internship, right?
Right.
And where
Right.
the
I
kids
mean,
come out of school and they think they're gonna do good during the summer, and they learn really quickly, what kinds of things happen on the site. Even to somebody like myself with 30, 36 years of experience, I hear something new every day. I hear
so
something new every day.
So I guess the other thing that I see with the client companies I work with is safety is not overstaffed. Okay, there are no excess safety professionals out there.
No.
Okay, um, I've got a client. They have a safety director. They've got 14 sites. Okay, they're a distribution company. So at each of those places, they have a part-time safety person who also is a supervisor. Okay, but there is no way that a the single full-time safety director is going to be able to learn everything they need to know about all the safety hazards and everything happening at these different locations, right? AI, if you tell it, here's the situation, here's our company. I mean, if you're a public company, you could upload documents to it. You could basically tell it sort of who you are, and it will go to its knowledge base and it will help you understand these are the safety hazards you're likely to face. These are the types of hazards and situations you're going to run into. Here are the types of people. So AI as a learning tool to do some recon for you can be absolutely incredible this way.
But what kind
Otherwise,
of
otherwise, I go on site, I show up, right? I go to some remote warehouse that I have. I go there, and within 5 minutes, it's obvious that I know nothing about this operation, right? And my credibility at that point is maybe not shot, but is definitely called into question, right? But if I can use AI to say, I'm going to a copper mine in Arizona. Here's the mine. Here's the type of things they're doing there. Here are the processes they have. Okay. AI can say, here are the types of hazards they're going to run into. Here are the types of complaints people have. Here are the types of filings that OSHA has seen at these types of sites. I can suddenly go into this site with a tremendous amount of knowledge. And when I'm talking to people, suddenly, I mean, they go, Todd's done his research. Like he's at least asking the right questions. He's using the right words. So my conversation with people is a lot more credible than if I just go in totally green.
so what are some other kinds of use cases that companies come to you and say, "Todd, we need some assistance in this area." What are the most common?
So I'm going to say incident interviews are also big. People want to basically do a good job there, and so you can actually create very complicated, fun incidents where you have to interview witnesses. So I can say, like I said, I can say been an incident in a mining operation. I can say there's 6 people involved. There's the person who was injured. There's the site supervisor. There's the coworker who saw these things, and I can give them each different aspects of the story. And so what you can set up is
Which is
if you want to get
accurate,
the whole,
Todd.
huh?
Which is accurate,
Absolutely.
Todd.
Which is totally accurate. And so I can actually create scenarios that say, to get to the root cause of this thing, you have to interview all 6 people, or you've got to interview, 4 of the 6 people, and you have to be able to elicit this information from them. Okay. And I can say, for example, if you're not sympathetic, if you don't create an environment where people feel free to talk openly, then do not reveal what you know. And so, and I can say, if you use these types of words, so if, for example, if a company has a particular incident investigation process they use, you can say, so here's the process we use. Okay. If the person uses this process, then reveal the information that you have. But if they don't use it, then don't reveal that information. So
I
the
love
tool is
that.
so
I do too.
it is a fantastic tool for reinforcing whatever process you put in place, whether it's something you developed yourself or maybe you've purchased it from some vendor somewhere to do that. Um, but I say
What I
incident
found
investigation is really common. People having those those skills to make people feel comfortable and to get them to reveal what they know and then sort of have to put it all together is a really common client
I
request.
think that's so needed in our industry. I don't think we do a good job either in professional development or in formal education in training safety professionals how to interview witnesses. Most of the time, when I get involved, Dr. Martin gets involved in an incident investigation, what we find is the interview stopped when they handed them a form and said, "All right, write your witness statement." Well, sometimes
Right.
witnesses don't know what they don't know, right? It's a learned skill.
Well,
And I think I developed my skills by doing it wrong for many years, but fortunately, I had some good mentors, and it was something I wanted to develop. But I could think about how much better I would have been earlier in my career had I been able to sit down in the privacy of my own office and role play with AI rather than doing it live when lives were on the line, reputations were on the line, OSHA citations, things that are said are probably going to end up in some sort of court filing. Mistakes matter, and mistakes live end up costing people, a lot of indirect and direct cost, including financial and reputation. So I think it's great. Like I want to now, I want to try to beat the AI.
yeah, of course he does. Of course he
Well,
does.
I'm happy to accommodate you as a matter of fact. So this is my conference talks for the coming year is going to be on basically incident investigations, but I'm going to be doing some demos for that for at conferences. But I want people to have the experience of having to, interview different people with different personalities, um, different backgrounds and things, and have to get good at again making them feel comfortable enough to reveal what they know. And like you said, you know. And early in our careers, we have mentors, we have managers who sort of help us, but we make a lot of mistakes. I mean, it's really hard to get good at these things, right? But now that I have AI, I can sit there and I can interview somebody over and over and over again, and I can get feedback from the AI, and it can again give me advice and say, assess my performance during the interview. Did how could I have made the witness feel more comfortable to reveal what they know? And it will give you feedback on that to do that.
I want to go back to what James said about writing things down, putting a piece of paper in front of somebody and having them write. I think if everybody was a writer, they'd be writers, right? And when it comes to witnesses, it's more than that. It's more than what's coming out of your head. It's sights, sounds, feelings, all those different things, and that's where an interview sings, to use a weird term, but that's where it really comes out is you have to be talking to a person in order to get all those things woven into what the true answer is, right? Because most people, I mean, I work in construction. James works, he works in a lot of different things, but oil and gas, where people, if they were going to be writers, they would have been writers. They're
Right.
workers, and so you're going to get a lot more information by learning to be a good interviewer in the verbal sense.
That's why as a process, I do the interviews before we do the written statements. And that way, if there's something in the statement without coaching, without, yeah, and putting my own bias into their statements, if they forget to put something down in a written statement, we can say, "Oh no, remember you said this during our interview. That's something you might want to include." But most people do it in reverse. They get the written statement, and sometimes they do interviews. But more often than not, I've found that interviews are very much a forgotten part of the investigation process.
Well, I think, talking about incidents in particular, you know, I mean, accidents and things happen for a lot of different reasons. It's not like there's just like one thing happening. I mean, it's a situation where, it's the end of the month, end of the shift, right? Night shift. I'm under a lot of pressure. You were short staffed. This thing on the forklift wasn't working correctly. There's a lot of factors that have to come into these things. And for somebody to sit down and sort of write down all those things, very difficult. I mean, people don't know sort of, necessarily what was the really contributing factor. And I think the interview is a way to, like I said, not to coach people, but I think to bring to people's awareness. Okay, so how noisy was it around you? What was happening? What sounds did you hear? Okay, what was the state of repair of the equipment that you were working with or that was around you and things. But then people start to go, oh, I never thought about that. Yeah, it was really noisy, or it was the end of the month or something like. But I think giving people some framework of what was important in the incident is important. And again, I can stick that all into AI. I mean, I can put in to the AI role play. I can say it was the end of the corridor, you were behind schedule, you were understaffed, and so I can give those different aspects of the incident to different witnesses, and then you have to, through your good interviewing skills, have to sort of get them to reveal that information to do that. And again, if you have a method to interview people, so you say, oh yeah, we have a 3-part or a 4-step method for interviewing people. I can put that in the AI and say, this is the process I'm looking for the role player to do correctly. If they use that process, then reveal information. If they don't, then don't reveal it. So I said it's a fantastic reinforcement tool for other training that you're doing out there. And I think that's one of the most powerful parts about AI.
Todd, I am 1,000% intrigued by this. I think you've been a wonderful guest on this topic. I can see you coming back and actually bringing a scenario. And since
I would love to do that. I mean,
bring a
I've
scenario, right? And I'm going to give you a challenge. I'm going to give James a challenge and you a challenge, right? Bring a scenario, and maybe James and I work the scenario together. But this would be really kind of instructive. Um, to see us work with the AI and maybe you coach in the background and see how that shakes out because I think in practice this is something that could really help people with their professional practice with their interviewing skills with a multitude of things. So I'm so glad we had you on today. Thank you so much for coming.
I'm thrilled. Like I said, it's a great topic, and the abilities of these systems are only getting better and better. And there's, in 6 months from now, there's going to be even more stuff that AI can do. But I would love to come back. I would love to present you with a challenge,
Yep.
and see
Now
how we
now,
could do that. So
just so you know, it was James that threw down the gauntlet, right? Because he wants to beat AI, and honestly, I think he could do a pretty good job, and maybe together we could do even better job. But please think about that. Think about what your best scenario is, and loading in something like that. And so, thank you so much for coming.
I
I
appreciate it.
love this topic. And how do people get a hold of you if they want to get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can go to my website, mavericksafetytraining.com. You can see all I've got to offer. And can I make a plug for my online course? So I have an online course. You can learn how to create AI role plays yourself, how to create scenarios, how to create personas. It's online, and we offer coaching as well. But if you want to learn how to do this and have some fun with it, check out my website.
Thank you so much, Todd.
It's
James,
been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I had a
it's been
ball.
wonderful. I've enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed it. I know James has too. James,
All right, but
go
thank you
ahead.
for coming. Challenge accepted. You're going to make me look like a fool on my own podcast, but that's okay. That's how we learn. That's how we learn. That's how we learn. But thank you again for coming on. Everyone, if you have interest in this area, and you should, Todd Hudson, the go to expert when it comes to role playing with AI. Season 4, we're back, starting off this season with a bang. We do it for you. So thank you for all of our listeners who have supported us now for the past 3 years and into year 4. Thank you for liking. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for following. As I'm off to say, your mama wants you to listen to the Risk Matrix and like and share and subscribe so that you can know when the latest episodes are dropped.
And thank you also to Veriforce, who powers our Risk Matrix podcast. We are so thankful for your support to bring this to the Veriforce customers and to all of our listeners across LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. We've got so many listeners, and this would not be possible without Veriforce's support. So thank you so much for powering the Risk Matrix.
And until next time, y'all keep bringing those workers home safe from those hazardous jobs, and roll
Roll
tide, baby.
Tide.
We're out.